Good morning. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for the music. But most of all, thank you for having me here in this new space. And I see a lot of the same faces and hearts and smiles. And I am just joyous to be here with you and see what's happened at Unity of Fredericksburg. And it's just a beginning, if you would, new beginning for you guys. And I just see great things happening and just affirm that for you. There were 4 guys on an airplane, small jet, and they were flying cross country. And the pilot put it on autopilot and came back to talk to him. And when he did, he all of a sudden just dropped dead of a heart attack right there on the spot. And so they said, okay, fine, let's get the parachutes and figure out what we can do. We got a little time here. And they found out there were only 3 parachutes with 4 guys. One guy was known as a great doctor. He was a surgeon, had just healed lots of people or helped heal lots of people, and miracles seemed to take place after he did the surgery. So he grabbed a parachute and said, you know, the world needs me, and he jumped out of the plane. The second guy was an educator, well-known educator throughout the world. Had really taught a lot of people, a lot of different things. And so he said, you know, I'm one of the smartest people around, so I should stay. And so he grabbed hold of the parachute and jumped out of the plane. And so the other guy was a minister. He was older. And he said to this geek who was with him, much younger, he said, here's what we'll do. I'll let you take the parachute. I've lived my life fully. It's your opportunity to really bring some good things to the world. So you go ahead and take it. And the geek says, oh, no problem. We got 2 parachutes. He said, how do we have 2 parachutes? He said, you know that's really the smartest guy in the world? He grabbed my knapsack. So anyway, has nothing to do with the message. But anyway, just a joke I heard, and I thought it was kind of cute. Wanted to share with you. What I really want to talk about this morning is this idea of what we call Canoeing the Mountain. How many have read the book? Anybody familiar with the book Canoeing the Mountain? New to you. Good. I got something to talk about then. What I want to start off, though, before we get to Canoeing the Mountain, is to talk a little bit about some of the studies we've done in Unity over the last year and a half, and some of the things were 2 years, some of the things we're finding out. And what we know now is that over the next 15 years, that there will be more change than there has been for the last 200 years or more. Just in 15 years. For example, one of the things that I kind of like is that, you know, you're going to get off of your airplane and you're not going to call Uber. They'll be there waiting for you because they'll be connected to you in some way. Isn't that nice? Not only that, when you want to fly somewhere, you just push a button and it gets the cheapest flight, reserves it for you, and you don't have to do anything else. One button. That's all going to be available to us. Facebook will actually be simple at that time if it's still around, okay? I'm still trying to get on Facebook, and I must admit that, you know, somebody says, go to such and such a group, and 20 minutes later, I go to my wife and say, how do I find that group? But I eventually get there, and so I'm getting used to that. I got used to the internet long ago, thank goodness. Also, one of the things that's going to happen that kind of alarms people, but I'm not sure it needs to, is that about 1/2 the Fortune 500 companies will be out of business 10 to 12 years from now. 1/2. Everybody goes, oh my God, no, that couldn't happen. Well, 88% of all Fortune 500 companies are out of business today that were around in 1970. It's just happening faster, that's all. And companies are having to adjust. The one constant is Walmart. Walmart is there, okay? It's been there for 14 years. One of the top was there in 1980, as a matter of fact, and has been one of the Fortune 500 for all that time, and seems to be doing extremely, extremely well. So you won't have to give up your Walmart. But there are other things that happen, is that when companies start to go out of business like that, whereas other companies take up the slack, today we have this thing called artificial intelligence. I understand what it is conceptually. I couldn't explain it to you. I have a new son-in-law in our family who could explain it to you. He works in artificial intelligence for IBM, worked for Rolls-Royce for a while in artificial intelligence. And when I said I knew a little bit about it, he got all excited. until he talked to me a few minutes, and then he realized I didn't know anything about it. But anyway, but the biggest thing about artificial intelligence for you and I, and for us who aren't in that field, is that it is going to replace workers. That approximately, over the next 15 years, it's predicted that somewhere between 50% to 25% of all jobs will be eliminated. And it won't be like you'll go to another job. And I'm not trying to scare you to death. Many of you who are about my age aren't too worried about that. But what I'm trying to say, basically, is that things are going to change. Now, are we going to, are people going to starve to death? No. Because there's some things that are starting to happen. In Stockton, California, there is a program where every person in the community, adult, gets $500 a month. That's not funded by the government. That's funded by a couple of companies who've let a lot of people go because of artificial intelligence. And they have so much profit that they understand the importance of sharing that in the community so that things stay stable. And so we see more of that, and I think more of that's going to happen over time. And some people predict that probably $25,000, $30,000 a year will be coming, other than Social Security or whatever, will be coming to people because they're out unemployed. But what it's going to allow people to do is, instead of being a number, it's going to allow a person to be creative, a creator, to be independent, and to add income, but not let income be the only drive. So that's the kind of change, that we're looking at. And there are many more on the horizon. And so as we look at that change, what we start to understand is that as the world changes, we have to change. But it's changing so quickly, it's really difficult to do. So we have to have a different mindset, a different way of being and looking at the world. I remember when people talked about the millennials are on the way. Did you know that 73% of the workforce today are millennials? They're not on the way, they're here. Most of them are very intelligent, very responsible, people who have a good grasp on life and who are pretty independent and are very spiritual in nature, but not religious, we know that, and do things differently. For example, millennials tend to give, but they tend to give to 10 different organizations. And so if they give $250 a month, okay, or I'm sorry, if they give $2,500 a month, they're giving $25 to 10 different organizations per week. They don't tend to go to their church and give 10%. That's not their style. And so we know that the giving in ministries is also changing. So there's a lot of changes that are going to take place. And one of the books, this book is called Canoeing the Mountain. Really what it does is it talks about the Lewis and Clark expedition, which started in 1804. And one of the things that everybody believed is that there was a water path up to the Great Divide, the Missouri River primarily, and that when you got to the top, there would also be a river that would flow you down to the Pacific. Now, of course, we all know that's different than that, but they didn't know it. So what they put together was an expedition of people who were excellent at canoeing, excellent at they call them river rats, okay, the Discovery Corps, and were able to maneuver through any kind of situation when it came to water. Well, they got, about 15 months after they started, they got to Lehigh Pass, which is in Montana. That is the headwater of where the Missouri started. And they say that Lewis actually went to where the water comes out and starts the Great Missouri and just washed his hands there. Very excited about going to the top of the hill about another 100, 200 feet away. And as he walked up that hill, he was ready to see what they were calling the Columbia River. But what he saw were mountain ranges and mountain ranges and peaks larger than anything he'd ever seen before. One of the people who finally went up there and looked at it said, "This is the most terrible mountains I've ever seen in my life. How in the world are we going to get through this?" So these were a group of people who understood how to canoe, how to maneuver rivers, but they didn't understand how to move through mountains. But they learned. Because you see, the first thing, which is very important, their mission was more important than how they got there. And what Jefferson told them is that you will be carrying on the most important thing possible for our future financially, business-wise, and industrially. You may not use the word industrial. But this is what you're about. So we want you to find a northwest passage and go to the Pacific Ocean. So they didn't give up. What they did is they canoed the mountains. And the way they did that is they gave up their canoes and found different ways to move through the mountains until they ran into a river that carried the Pacific Ocean. It was totally different than anything anybody expected. And they were able to canoe the mountains. Isn't that a great illustration? But what does that really mean when we canoe the mountains? First of all, it says that we have to be willing to keep our mission intact, which I just mentioned. So as we canoe the mountains in unity, and that's what we're starting to do, as we canoe the mountains, we have to keep our vision and mission in mind. You have your mission. Someday I really hope, and I'm not suggesting you change it, but I really hope that all Unity Ministries have the same mission. The one we have, which is not the one nationally yet, is transform lives, transforming the world. We think it's bigger than we are. We also have a mission in Unity that says that we are here, and our ministries are here, to help grow people so that we can enlighten the world spiritually. So that they are growing and evolving spiritually, and it moves into a world movement. For years, Unity did a great job, and they still do, of helping people heal, helping people come together, get their lives together, and then a number of those people said, I got it together, I don't need Unity anymore, and went home, right? So anyway, what we're hoping today is that people will understand the truth, that once we get our lives together, now the fifth principle in Unity, which is action, says I have to share, not have to, but I want to, it's a better word, I want to share what I have learned, how I have grown, and help the world come to peace through the power of love. And so I really do hope that someday most Unity churches will have a mission and a vision that aligns with that, so that people don't just think we are here to just help each other locally in this congregation. Because when we do it together, we're much more powerful, can have greater vision and greater understanding. The other thing we have to do is, as Meriwether Lewis said, is we have to let go of our canoes. Is it hard for you to let go of your canoe? It is for me. And yet I have to understand how to do that. And as I learned to do that, I learned that by letting go of my canoe, I find other things that give me an ability to be stronger, an ability to step out more, an ability to really grasp life and living it more excitedly. That when I stay in the canoe, it actually holds me back. And so in our churches today, in our ministries today, we really need to let go of the canoe. And then you say, well, what do you grab hold of? We don't know. That's the scary part. And we're trying to learn and trying to figure that out. And I'll tell you how we're doing that. And then we have to reorient ourselves. We have to get off the river. We have to get off the boat. We have to be willing to move from being river rats to mountain rats. And as we do that, we then start to reinvent ourselves. And so in Unity Day, I really believe there is this need, and we will continue to be, and it is in all of Christendom, but in all religions, I think, this need to change and to accept change. We have a movement in Unity that we have about 100 ministers involved in and in some pretty diligent study. We've been doing it for a little over a year now, called Focusing Forward. And Focusing Forward comes from the idea that NASA, and I've forgotten the guy's name, a scientist there, was asked to figure out how to get us to Mars. And that they would like to get to Mars in 18 months, to launch from Mars in 18 months. So what he figured out is he had to already see himself on Mars before he'd ever get there. And what happened was, by seeing himself on Mars and moving backwards, he figured out, what do I have to do today so I can be on Mars in 3 months? Or be ready to launch for Mars in 3 months. And that's what he did. And he called it focusing forward. I focus on where I want to be, and then I figure out and allow Spirit, he didn't use those words, but that's what I would use, to guide me and direct me and lead me there. Because that's the way things happen in our lives. That's the way we move, and we have our being in life itself. So, number one is we have to focus forward, and we have to be willing to lead in uncharted territory. See, I know, and I believe, I don't know this, but I believe this, that the reason churches are shrinking today, and it's just hitting unity for the first time, is because we haven't changed. We still think it's going to be happening like it did in the 1800s, in the 1980s, the 1990s, and the 2000s. When Christendom was strong and everybody was going to church on Sunday morning and churches were growing in leaps and bounds. And for many churches, income wasn't an issue. But today we're seeing the opposite effect overall. So if you are growing, and I know you are, and we've been growing, you're doing something opposite of what is happening in the church movement of today. And I think probably what you have here is the opportunity of a lifetime. And I really mean this. You each have an opportunity to participate in the movement of an organization here in Fredericksburg, Virginia, that will be different, that will be creative, that will attract people because of that. One of the things that was shared with me by somebody this morning was that one of the things you hope to do is bring more revenue in during the week. See, what I believe we need to become, and I don't know what, and it's different for each community, we have to be centers of creativity. We have to be a place where people who are unemployed can come and learn something, an actual tool maybe. We have to be the place where people come not just for spiritual growth, but total growth. And when we totally grow, we then grow spiritually. And don't ask me which is first. I don't know, depending upon the person. So we have that opportunity. And so we are really always wanting to be able to become that center of creativity. And if we don't, you see, what one of the things that Lewis said when he wrote to President Jefferson was, we're either going to adapt or die. And that's what we're about, adapting. And I don't think we're going to die. I think you'll have church service, and you'll have church services much like we're having today 10 years from now. But that will only be an adjunct. The real church is happening every day in the center and outside the center as you reach out in the community. As you join with others who reach out in the community. As we find the best ideas available, and we don't have to be the authors of them, to move forward. That's what we're really looking for. And so as we do that, we will find ourselves, I think, in a position of creating a world that works for all. And in creating a world that works for all, we really are talking about this opportunity of having a mission that doesn't change because we change in our logistics and our ability to operate, even in our idea on what spiritual growth is. That there's no fixed way. It's individual to each community. It's actually individual to each person. And as we start to do that and pick that up, we start to, we start to have a passion for life. We start to know that while we're here, we are, and I don't mean ego-wise, but we are important because we can make a difference. And we do it in our families, we do it at work. We show up differently. And when we show up differently, and I mean by that, we show up with unconditional love. We show up with hope. We show up with creativity. And if somebody comes in and says, I'm sorry, your job's gone, you don't go, oh my gosh. What you do is the story of Eric Butterworth, those who know who that is, an author and a great minister in Unity. He lived in New York City, and this guy came to his office and says, I just lost my job. What in the world am I going to do? And Eric Butterworth says, congratulations. The guy said, what? He said, congratulations, you're going to find a better job. There's a reason why you're leaving. And sure enough, a few months later, the guy comes in and goes, I got the greatest job in the world. You know? So we use our faith, we use our positivity, we use our practical understanding of who we are in order to move forward and to stay in a motion where we change. As we focus forward, this team has spent a year looking at the future. That's why I could quote some of those things for you, okay? We've listened to futurists. We've listened to people who are making a difference in Christian community. We are listening to people who are making a difference in science. We've been talking, interviewing a lot of people, and there are a lot of teams. So we've got a wealth of information. Where we are now is what we call the design area, where we are designing what we want to become. And taking all that information that's pertinent and putting it in. Because, just think about it. How many of you in 1995 thought there would be an iPhone? Oh, come on. Where's Steve Jobs and group, okay? Jobs and group, okay? So anyway, what it is that changes. It was only 12 years ago that the iPhone was brought to the market. It was only 12 years ago that Facebook was brought to the market. And it's going to be more and more and more. But you and I, if we keep our spiritual compass, if we keep our eye within, if we allow Spirit to direct us and guide us, we will find the right answers. I don't think unity is going away at all. I think unity actually is going to have more of an appeal, and we're seeing it already, to people throughout the world. Because we're saying there are many paths to God, right? There's not just one. We are diverse. We are inclusive. And that's what we want to be. And that's what the millennials, and I don't think we do everything for the millennials. I want somebody to do something for me too. But I do believe that the millennials understand that and celebrate that. And they're going to be attracted to movements like Unities, if not Unities. And we're seeing that. And so, I again congratulate each of you on where you are. I love this space. I love it better than, I've seen all your spaces for the last 15 years. And I like it better than anything I've seen. And I feel the energy. And I just appreciate this opportunity just to share with you a little bit this idea of canoeing the mountain. And think about that what you're going to be doing. And in your work also, in a practical way, not just in the church, you're going to be canoeing the mountains for a number of years and trying to figure out, what do I do next? Because there is no map. Thank you. So do we go into meditation directly, right? Thank you. So let's just take a moment to just relax, to be right here in this space, in this now moment. And feel the peace of morning breaking in you. And as you go deeper, know that this is a space where you can feel comfortable, where you can eliminate fear, where you can step into unconditional love. That as you go deeper, it's a love that heals you spiritually, emotionally, and physically. It's a love that says yes to the desires of your heart. And we affirm that for each of you. But as we go deeper, we go to that spot, to that place within our heart space that says, I am home. I am one. I am at peace. I am relaxed. know that the Spirit of God dwells within me, as me, in this very moment. So now let's go to that place we call the silence. So in this now moment, we are the love. In this now moment, we are the peace. In this now moment, we affirm that we are an expression of divine mind. That Spirit within us is the I am, is the Christ consciousness, is the hope for tomorrow. And so as we come back this time and this space, we do so not just relaxed, but hopefully inspired, ready to do what is ours to do. And so we pray this in the power and the consciousness of the Christ that dwells within each of us, and certainly guides us from our heart space. Amen.